Good afternoon. Officer Robert Reeves, Public Information Officer for the Irving Police Department. Here to talk about the capital murder arrest of Arturo Pena-Almanza Jr. for the murder of 2-year-old Jeremiah Rios. Officers responded to the 300 block of Brown Drive on Tuesday morning, September 21st, around 9:30 a.m. Once Irving Police and Irving Fire were on scene, they immediately noticed that Jeremiah was deceased at that time, and there was no possibility of any type of first aid or CPR to be rendered. Investigators were called out due to it being a child death and some unusual circumstances just in the beginning. They started interviewing the mom of the child. They also interviewed the mom's boyfriend, who is the arrestee, Arturo, and talking to them, and stories started being inconsistent due to evidence that was found by our investigators of surveillance videos, talking to medical examiners, and being informed of the different blunt force trauma that was on Jeremiah. We knew that this was not an accident and that foul play had occurred here in the death of this 2-year-old child. The suspect was arrested on Wednesday for abandoning or endangering a child. We wanted to get that arrest as quickly as we could so that we wouldn't have to worry about any possibility of him fleeing or not being able to locate him. Investigators continued to speak with him and interview him, and on Thursday during that interview, he ended up confessing to being the person who did murder Jeremiah. His reasoning that he gave was that Jeremiah wiped feces on him and he began hitting him several times all over his body. That charge was upgraded to capital murder of a person under 10 years of age. Arturo is currently at the Dallas County Jail. The bond I am unaware of. I don't believe there's been a bond, but that arraignment process is being taken place over there at Dallas County. Does anybody have any questions right now?
Have y'all, what about mom? Will mom be charged to this? Or when you said the stories were inconsistent, was her story inconsistent with his, or is her story inconsistent also?
So, mom is not a suspect or a person of interest. Mom is obviously devastated, and this is just a horrific incident that happened to her. So, the Irving Police Department is not looking at her in any type of a negative light.
Did the suspect in this case have any relationship to the child other than just being a caretaker? He wasn't a father, was he?
He was not the father of the child. I believe he's been in a relationship with the mom for a little over a year. They all three resided at the residence together.
Is this suspect anyone that Irving PD has dealt with in the past?
We don't have any local criminal history. There's not a history of domestic violence at this apartment complex for these individuals. So we don't have a previous on them before this incident.
Any records of Child Protective Services?
Not that I've been made aware of, and not that the investigators shared with me of any concern for this.
For your investigators seeing something like this, how are they in something like this?
No, it's devastating. You know, throughout our police careers, we sometimes see things that no one should ever actually have to see or bear witness to. Thankfully, we have a strong peer support unit here at the police department. We do try to encourage our officers to speak to someone if they need assistance or if they're having a hard time dealing with the call. On most critical incident calls of this nature or involving similar situations, we do have a debrief with one of our in-house counselors. But this is stuff that stays with you your entire career, right? So, they're handling it the best they can, and they perform their jobs to a high standard so that we can make sure that we got this person put in jail where they belong.
You said there was surveillance video that kind of helped tell the true picture. Did that capture what happened to the child on the surveillance footage?
Correct. So on the apartment complex has surveillance video on it. We also got surveillance videos from other persons that submitted it to us. but the surveillance video does show the suspect and the child leaving the apartment around 3 o'clock in the morning and then returning around 4 o'clock in the morning. At that time, the child on that video did not look to have life or needed some type of medical attention. The suspect was failing to get medical attention for the child at that time, which is what led to the probable cause affidavit being granted for the endangering of the child. So that's how that case, or that charge, was able to be applied.
You said Pena-Almanza, last name, Pena-Almanza?
Pena-Almanza Jr.
You said that he confessed. Any remorse at all to investigators about what he did? Apparently he was a caretaker for this child for a long time. Did he express any sadness or any remorse at all after the incident? Because, I mean, he did tell you guys what he did.
Right, he did tell the investigators what he did and everything, but whether he was remorseful or not remorseful, I don't think any of that would be a contributing factor to constitute what he did. So his actions on that are irrelevant. The simple fact is he killed a 2-year-old, and there's nothing he could have said or reacted that would have justified that.
What's the last time you guys had a death like this in the community? Do you remember at all?
I do not remember off the top of my head. I know we've had deaths like this before, and they're tragic. They're tragic, and each one is a unique case, and each one is a very tragic case for all parties involved, from the families, the parents, the first responders that respond out there. We always, as I think humans, try to find a reasoning of why someone might have done something, but sometimes on situations like this, there's never going to be a good reason as to why.
Any other children at the residence?
I do not believe so. That question actually didn't come up with my investigators, but I don't believe there was any other children at the location.
Can you kind of walk us through the process of the first charge that you guys gave him that got him here to discuss what happened that day? Because it sounds like you guys had another charge and then the interview process really began.
Correct. So we had the evidence first before we had that charge. So in speaking with him, the investigators already knew that we saw him on surveillance video around 3 o'clock in the morning. So the first version of, that he might have said, I didn't see the child from the time I went to bed, from the time that we called the police at 9:30 in the morning, was obviously an inaccurate story. They kept pressing and telling about the surveillance footage around 3 o'clock in the morning. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, he admitted to going to the mom's car, try to play it off, but as the surveillance video showed, and that evidence showed, that the victim was definitely being carried in a way to where the body was very limp. So that was obvious that the child needed some medical attention. It wasn't a normal way for a child to look on being carried. So once that him and the child went back into the residence and the police were not contacted for almost 5.5 hours later, that was evidence enough to be able to charge him with that endangering a child offense.
Did you say where he went?
He said he just went down to the car. So
He was gone an hour later.
and they saw that that it went down to the vehicle. But yeah, he was gone about an hour. He tried to describe it as just 15 minutes, but it was time stamped on the video there. About 50 plus minutes.
So I always say alleged, did the crime was it committed there or was it committed away?
Those specifics I do not have for you. I do not know if it occurred in the apartment and then occurred in the vehicle, maybe back and forth, whichever the case. I don't have that information for you.
We'll call 911 and notice the child was dead. Mom.
It was mom, yes.
Do either of these adults have family connections in the community? Are they longtime residents, recent residents?
So they are local North Texas residents, so they do have connections in the community.
Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por estar aquí. Soy el oficial Ariel Esparza, el portavoz del Departamento de Policía de Irving. Estamos aquí para darles información sobre el arresto del señor Arturo Santiago Pena-Almanza Jr. por el cargo de asesinato capital. a darle una descripción breve de lo que sucedió. Oficiales respondieron al bloque número 300 de la calle Brown aproximadamente a las 9:30 de la mañana por una llamada de una persona inconsciente. Esta persona inconsciente era un menor de 2 años que ya se encontraba sin vida ya cuando llegaron los paramédicos y los oficiales. Se determinaron que no podían rendirles primeros auxilios porque ya había fallecido esta persona. Eventualmente, durante el proceso de nuestra investigación, era evidente que había pasado algo, que no había fallecido este menor por causas naturales, que hubo circunstancias sospechosas. Los detectives empezaron a investigar y eventualmente se detuvo a la persona Arturo Santiago Pena-Almanza con el cargo de poner en peligro a un menor. Ya cuando esta persona fue arrestada el miércoles, fue entrevistado por nuestros detectives y eventualmente confesó de haber matado al menor, y después ese cargo lo pusieron como asesinato capital. ¿Alguna pregunta que tengan?
¿A qué hora más o menos sucedió
La llamada se recibió a las 9 de la mañana del martes, 9:30 de la mañana. Fue la llamada cuando entró la primera llamada al 911 durante nuestra investigación, y de inmediato se estableció que había sucedido circunstancias un poco extrañas, ¿no? Lo que nos estaban diciendo y lo que estábamos viendo no estaba bien, algo estaba fallando. Eventualmente nuestros detectives revisaron las cámaras de seguridad y pudieron detectar que la persona arrestada había salido de la residencia aproximadamente a las 3 de la mañana y regresa a las 4 de la mañana con el menor. Y la forma en que estaba cargando al menor era como estaba el cuerpo, se miraba ya sin vida, se miraba muy flácido el cuerpo, y era algo, pues una persona con vida un poco más rígida. Fue cuando empezaron a establecer nuestros puntos de investigación de que algo estaba pasando.
¿El menor qué edad tenía?
2 años de edad.
¿No saben si él murió en la casa o fuera de la casa?
De momento esa información no la tengo. Lo que sí sabemos y que nos confesó esta persona fue de que prácticamente la golpeó al menor, causándole trauma y eventualmente causando la muerte.
¿Esta persona se le van a poner con cargos, como estaba diciendo usted, de pena capital?
De momento sí.
¿Qué más está haciendo el departamento como para llegar a esclarecer todo lo que sucedió, ya que esta persona confesó que lo había matado?
Pues prácticamente la investigación sigue. Ahí tenemos que ver circunstancias adicionales, no sé qué tipo de relación había existido entre esta persona y el menor. Sabemos que la persona arrestada era el novio de la mamá del menor, pero no sabemos, de momento no tenemos reportes de que haya habido algún tipo de abuso infantil o casos anteriores de violencia doméstica o otras cosas adicionales involucrando a ellos o al domicilio. Pero prácticamente esta persona nos ha confesado de que asesinó a un menor.
¿Su mamá va a enfrentar cargo o la están investigando o algo?
La mamá de momento no es una persona que estemos considerando sospechosa, de momento.
Pero una pregunta, ella no confesó, no habló algo, que estaba pasando algo con esta persona que no era...
No me informaron eso los detectives. Lo único que sé es, de momento, como no es considerada persona, sospechosa en este caso, me da a entender de que la historia de ella, pues, es un poco verídica.
¿Otra cosa?
De momento es todo, amigo.
Está bien, muchas gracias.